I wanted to ask you as well, you've alluded to some of his strengths throughout our conversation, obviously, and I wanted to really nail down what are his key characteristics, what are his strongest attributes, but also I wanted to get any weaknesses from you as well, because by the sounds of it, he doesn't have loads, but if there were areas of his game that can be developed further, stuff that Jurgen Klopp might pinpoint and say, oh, we can improve that, what would you say they were as well as his strengths, please?
It's difficult to find weaknesses because he's been in such good form at the moment. But I think the only thing I would say is um, sometimes I would like to see him make more sort of shots and I know he's got a lot of goals already, but
Yeah.
sometimes he gets in a positions where you're confident he can take the shot on, but he doesn't necessarily take it on, but instead passes to a teammate. So I think as a midfielder, I would like to see him in the box a little bit more to get on the end of chances
Mm-hmm.
from open play. And I think that's about it. I think defensively, he's improved on his game a lot. That was certainly something that I think he physically needed to improve a bit more when he went to the Bundesliga. Because I remember he played against Liverpool at Anfield, and back then he physically wasn't quite there to the standards. But
Mm-hmm.
he's grown a lot
Yeah.
since then. He's matured. He was only a teenager when he was playing it in that game. He's matured and grown a lot since then. And I think physically he's definitely there now. He's capable of standing his ground
Mm-hmm.
in the Premier League. In terms of his strength, like you mentioned, I've listed them already, but I think what like I said, his work rate is underrated. That's something that stands out for me. He's someone who works a lot in the team. Um, Obviously, he's got an incredible technique in terms of his shooting, but his passing and creativity as well. Uh, he ranks quite highly. I think he's among the best in terms of creating chances in the Bundesliga as well. I kind of compared him to De Bruyne before, and I think CIES, who do loads of
Mm-hmm.
statistics around that, they a couple of years ago said he was most similar to Kevin De Bruyne as well. So I think in that sense, I think he can be Liverpool's own De Bruyne if he joins. That's the player I think he's closest to in sort of similarity. And another thing is just his sort of overall speed. People don't tend to see it as much, but he is someone who can run fast, and I think that's going to be a strength if he joins Liverpool as well.
Well, absolutely, yeah. And if you're anything like Kevin De Bruyne, we'd be doing okay. I was going to ask you actually in a minute, who would you compare him to? I know you've already used the Gerrard comparison, but Kevin De Bruyne would do. It's interesting. Before we spoke, I went on FBref, which I always use for player comparisons, and they've got statistically in their top 10 were names such as Bruno Fernandes, Fede Valverde, and Michael Olise, three names we're all familiar with for various reasons. Do you see why those comparisons will be made as well?
Yeah, I can see that. I think just they're all offensive midfielders who, contribute a lot in terms of going forward, but also track back and
Mm,
put their work rate in defensively. So yeah, I can see that. But
yeah.
yeah, for me, I see more of a De Bruyne in him than necessarily Fernandez. But FBref has their own data points, so I'm sure they'll know their stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I wanted to ask you as well, slightly left field question, I suppose, in many senses. Um, I wanted to know what's he like? So who is he like in terms of the players we've already been linked to? Because obviously we've seen links to like Thuram, Manu Kone, Gravenberch, Gabri Vega. It feels to me, and you've already said he's going to fit that right-sided attacking eight role. So is this instead of Gabby Vega, would you say? Is he better than Gabby Vega? He's certainly further ahead in terms of his development. And I suppose out of the names we've been linked with, would this be the one you were most excited about as well?
It's a tough question because I can't be biased. I
You
have to be
can.
biased on this. Obviously, I'm going to be most excited about this name being linked. I think I like Manu Kone and Thuram as well. I think they'd be great fits. I did a piece on Liverpool.com talking to their academy
Yeah.
player who academy manager, sorry, who worked with both of them at ACBB when they were there
Yeah.
together. So obviously, I'd like I like either of those two, but I think for me, the big issue with Liverpool going for both Kone and Thuram, and then also having McAllister is if you look at where all of those players play, is on the
Mm.
left-sided midfield role.
Yeah.
And we've only really been linked with Gabri Veiga in that right-sided midfield role. So I can only compare him to Veiga uh, because that's the only comparison you
Yeah.
can sort of make because we haven't so far targeted any other right-sided midfielders. And I think personally, I've been against this policy because I think we need a right-sided midfielder as well. And obviously, I can't complain with the player we're supposedly having talks with now, because I think he would fit that role perfectly. And yeah, I think that's he would fill a position that we very much need sort of strengthening in. And I think we kind of looked at Mason Mount as well, who could
Mm.
potentially might have played in that role. I think although he prefers to play on the left side as well, but it's that side of that type of player, the more attacking midfielder rather than an all-round box-to-box midfielder or a defensive midfielder.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. We've spoken a lot about his development and how impressive he's been, even in the Bundesliga, which in its own right is obviously a very high class league. Is in the top five in the world, essentially. I wanted to ask you whether you think he's ready for a move such as this. Is he Premier League ready right now? You've spoken about how he's developed physically and he's more robust now. He's more capable of sort of standing up to the physicality of football matches. Do you think if this move was to happen this summer, he would walk into the Premier League quite comfortably?
Yeah, I think personally as well, he's been speaking about this, where he feels like he's open to a new challenge and he's kind of ready for a new challenge.
Hmm.
Certainly he's proven this season that he can be one of the best players in the Bundesliga already. So I think he's ready for it. He himself feels like he's open to a new challenge. That's why his agent is having meetings with the likes of Liverpool and the likes of Newcastle. I think obviously the Premier League is appealing to him because it's the best league in the world. And, although he's spoken about previously looking up to Cristiano Ronaldo, so maybe like to play for Real Madrid in the future, but it's really difficult to go to Real Madrid or
Mm.
Barcelona. So I think the next natural step is to go to the Premier League, and it makes sense to go to a club like Liverpool or a club like Newcastle, and I think the key thing is he's looking to make a long-term move at the moment. He's not just looking to sign for a club for a couple of years. He's really that's why he's taking his time and he's being really careful with his decision because he wants to make a long term. He sees his next move as one that is going to be where he's going to be in for a while, not just
Hmm.
in terms of on the pitch, but off the pitch as well. So
Yeah.
that will be his decision making too, in terms of where he would like to live, and I think all of those factors come into play. I mean, obviously the finances too, but we'll see how Liverpool can live up to that, and it certainly seems positive that Liverpool are holding talks with his agent, and we just have to see what happens.
Yeah, fingers crossed this one can happen. It's one we should all be very excited about, I think. Just a couple more, Ben, before I let you go. I wanted to ask you, normally I ask you or ask people whether a player would improve Liverpool and if they're sort of ready to fit into a Jurgen Klopp system, etc., etc. But we know he's ready for this system and we know he'd improve the Liverpool that we've just seen. So I wanted to ask you whether he would improve the Premier League winning Liverpool side. Like, is he that good? Like, if we were to sign him at our peak, is he still a player whereby he'd come into our squad and we'd all be very excited about it? Because it's easy to get excited about a player now, given the season we've just had. But is he of a level whereby he would improve us at our very best?
That's a tough question. I mean, who did we have in midfield? We had Henderson, who was really good, I think, that
Henderson,
season.
Wijnaldum,
Yeah,
Fabinho, really, wasn't it?
Ronaldo, yeah, yeah. But I still think that midfield wasn't that good,
It was
like,
workmanlike.
yeah, yeah, we had a players who could come in off the bench as well. I mean, the likes of Lallana. But I think, yeah, I mean, obviously not the Szoboszlai who was playing then
No, no, yeah, now,
for
yeah.
Salzburg, but now for sure, I think he could come in. I maybe if he came in then, he wouldn't be a starter for sure. He'd have to work for it and prove himself first. But having him come off the bench, I think that's what I really liked about him as well at Leipzig when he wasn't necessarily starting under Tedesco. He was coming off the bench, getting goals, getting assists, making an impact. And I think in that sense, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if he would come into that side, he could still get goals, he could still get assists and elevate Liverpool to maybe beating Atletico Madrid in the Champions League.
Go and play in goal, can he, as well? Hey, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that chat about Dominik Szoboszlai. And if you want all the extra information on Liverpool's potential new Hungarian midfielder, make sure you head to redmenplus.com where you'll see the show in full. And you'll also get all our Bobby Firmino Best in the World content, as well as all the bonus interviews as and when they are released. So yeah, head over there now, get involved with the club captain or club legend and get all our boss content.